Meditations with Frank Jordan and the Earth Mind Think Tank Group. We welcome all listeners and chatters. Any questions can be called in to 1-775-657-5973. 1-775-657-5973. If you're in the chat room on Wolf Spirit Radio, which is wolfspiritradio.com/wolf chat, please post questions in uppercase letters, in capital letters. Thank you. Now on with the show. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio. Welcome to Healings and Meditations. Oh, that was pretty appropriate. That little thing that went ding. That was really good. I'll do that again. Yeah, very sweet.
Tinctures, nice.
So, welcome to Healings and Meditations. We are on Wolf Spirit Radio at wolfspiritradio.com. We are at nobordersradio.co.uk. We are also at everbeyondradio.com. And this is Healings and Meditations with the Earth Mind Think Tank Group, sans our highly popular Vicar of Dibley. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the episode of the Vicar of Dibley. Do you get that in America?
Oh, with Dawn French?
Yeah. There's one episode, and I think it's the Christmas meal where she promises to go to like 3 different families, or I don't know how many, a multitude of families, and ends up like Mr. Creosote in The Meaning of Life, just like that seems to be what Frank's doing just now. He's going around to like people's houses, and they're giving him a whole lunch all over again. And I'm not sure of Frank's capacity to eat a lot. What's his appetite like these days, Joan?
Yeah, Joan?
Joan, are you there? Oh, maybe. Oh, well, she's probably out of the room. Okay, well, never mind. So, good evening, everybody, and good evening, Think Tank, and we were talking before the show started, because there's a little bit of controversy about exactly when the Grand Cross is. Please, I don't feel it. It feels like it can't be any worse. You know, the energies can't be any more intense than they are, and it's going to break soon. It's like a fever building up, and it's going to break soon. But do you want to talk a little bit about what you were saying earlier about all the different? Let's talk about energetic groups that could have a negative influence or a positive influence on people, depending on how well they are.
Well, this is Teresa. I'll chime in for a moment. I think last time we met, we had a really fascinating conversation on the idea of belief, and when there is a collection of persons that believe the same issue or theme or what they see, for example, like the desert, and we all think about it in different ways. Some of us think it's a beautiful ground for nature that's just on the edge of blooming or is very productive, and others see it as an empty space. And when we were working on the topic, I found it really fascinating that what we were doing was putting the intention that it could be a very bountiful place. And so we put the intention in that the air is clean and the earth is fertile, and there is potential for precipitation in those places for it to become a lush place. And it was one of Frank's higher selves that actually guided us into that. And so we put that intention there that desert places can be lush places. So the topic of belief I thought was really fascinating, and I've been wandering around thinking about, as we form the standing waves of what we believe, the three-dimensional things that are around us, we can shift those and alter them and make them wonderful places or dreary places. I mean, something as simple as going to the dentist or doing something that we're not exactly enjoy to be doing. And I suggested that even to a friend and told her, if you go to the dentist, actually, Mike, you were the one that inspired me on that. If you go to the dentist and think that it's going to be the most exciting, wonderful result, then that's exactly what it will be. But if you go in fear and reluctance, then it'll be exactly that as well. So no matter what you think or believe, that's exactly what it will turn out to be. And that's one of the beautiful things about what we do in Earth Mind. We can look at something and take it and shift it, shift that energy, as Frank and Stephen and Francis have said multiple times. And it takes energy to move energy, and it makes it so exciting for us to be able to think that there's nothing that's impossible out there. There's nothing out there that you could say, well, that never can happen, because it all can happen. Look at our entire planet. It already has happened. And it was a paradise, and it still is a paradise in many, many ways. And it's how we place our intention, our desire and will to do that. So that's where perhaps we could start. And I really enjoyed your comments, Diane, when you talked about the desert, and Walt and your experiences in the desert, and your perspectives on that. You're welcome to chime in too.
Well, thanks, Teresa. I like that. I like that idea. I have this way of looking at things that's fairly recent for me. Is that if I believe that we create our reality, I'll speak for myself. If I believe that I create my own reality, and I know that where I'm heading is for my highest good, then everything between here and there is perfect. So if you can just look at each and every experience, every person that you meet, like you say, even the silliest things, or, going to the dentist, going to the DMV, I had to go to renew my driver's license, and just setting the attitude that I am here to spread joy, to spread love in whatever way I can. And that makes me responsible for my own state of being, because I can't be there for others if I'm not there for myself first. So, experiencing everything from a different state of mind has led me to really, really appreciate the desert. I was out this morning actually going for a ride with the horses again, and it's been a few weeks since I've been out in this particular area, and now the weeds have overgrown a lot, and they've gotten a little dry, so it's not as beautiful, but now there's a second wave of flowers that need the shade from the weeds in order to come up. So everything has this exquisite balance, and, the appreciation state is what allows you to see these things. So I think that's my message for everybody is, doesn't matter the astrological influences, everything. You have control of your choice. Being happy is a choice, and being in joy is a choice. And I saw a very cute thing, a little story about an elderly woman who was being moved from her home. Her husband had passed, and she was being moved into a nursing home facility. She's legally blind, so the the orderly was explaining to her how her room was going to be set up and what was there, and how they had these little eyelet curtains and the colors. They were describing the colors, and she said, "Oh, I love it." And the man said, "But sweetheart, you haven't seen your room yet." And she said, "Oh, I don't have to see it to know I will love it. Loving something is a choice. I have chosen to be happy about this, and I have chosen to love where I'm going. And so that is how it's going to be when I get there."
So the message is, change yourself, change your reality.
You bet.
One of the
stay at that list.
I have the guest I've just been on that our audience has been listening to for the last 4 hours with me. Nancy Hopkins has got these cosmic rules that she has, which and number one and number two are that reality is what you make it, and that the other one is majority rules, and the third one is the powers that be do everything in their power to prevent you from learning rules 1 and 2.
Yeah.
In one of his interviews, somebody asked Andrew Bartzis about this issue of setting up local realities, and he says all it takes is 50 people intending all at the same time on a specific goal, and that's all it takes to create a local reality. So that sounds like a pretty good formula. If all it takes is 50 people to create a local reality, and you get thousands intending on something positive, then it's unavoidable. It has to materialize at some point.
Well, that's why there's so much joy in a playground, because the more kids there are having fun, the more fun everybody has.
Correct. They're taken in by that wave. They're being taken by all that energy. It's like you can't help but laugh when one or two people start. Has anyone ever seen that video that went around the internet? This fellow who went around to different places, and he would stand in a coffee shop, or he would stand online, and different environments, and he would just start yawning for no reason at all. 20 seconds later, you'd see everybody in the store, or everybody in the library, or everybody online just yawning for no apparent reason. And that's the same thing with laughter. You see somebody laughing, and it unavoidably you're going to start cracking a smile, because that energy just takes you in.
That's the kind of energy to be taken in by always.
Yeah. One of the things I was discussing with my mom earlier today is that, you can see how the system is set up. You never see, or at least I have no recollection of Oscar awards be given to comedies or very funny movies. Maybe I'm not a movie. I'm not a film buff, so maybe I'm saying this completely wrong. But over the years, whenever I see on the newspaper which movies have gotten an Oscar nomination or some kind of nomination or an award, it's always some deep drama, some huge, fat, heavy drama. Movies that make you feel light and happy, and I mean, they rarely, unless it's a musical, I guess, they rarely get prizes for those. The focus appears to be always on drama.
That's what we call the Hollywood agenda. We won't go there.
Yeah. Correct.
So,
I have a fun little story that it really influenced my life, and it was this gal that was leading a dowsing group in my hometown, and she was telling us a story, and the story, I often refer to it as cinnamon hearts. And what she would do, we crossed the Canadian to the U.S. border to go to conferences or whatever, and she was telling us, she said, I am so careful every single time I cross the border. Before I leave, I set the intention of love to the border guards. And so what I do every single time is I send like cinnamon hearts. Like she visualizes these little energy packets of love to them. And she said, I went across the border 99 times, and I've always had such an easy crossing. It's always been really fantastic and really nice energy, and off she goes. And this one time, she said they had a carload of people, and she was just so excited about the trip and the course that she was taking. And they were chatting and sharing stories. And they were in this really high energy, but she did forget that one time to send the cinnamon hearts. And she said when she got there, the border guard just about skinned her alive. He went up one side, down the other, and just wouldn't take anything she said as being truthful. And she said, I'm just taking a course. And I won't go into details, but she had to actually produce a receipt in the end, after quite a while of explaining to him that it was a very above-board activity. She's just wanted to go and study a course in such and such a place. And finally, he saw the information. It was there. It was legitimate. He was able to check it out. And off she went. And she said ever since then, she makes absolutely sure every single moment of every single day that she remembers to send cinnamon hearts out. But the point of the story, obviously, is how much power we actually have, and we can change those intentions. And to believe what you're doing is absolutely true. It takes a thought, and which is faster than the speed of light, to travel and have an impact. Our energy in doing that, in our intention, is very dynamic and very real. And it excites me to know that we all have that power to do things. Yeah.
The thought from the head goes so quick, but it's the thought from your heart brain that travels even faster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this, for all of those folks who are out there listening to us, this is actually what it's like from time to time with our group and in chatting on topics that we find fascinating and we share. And sometimes the sharings have to do with activities that we've learned about or read about, or learning what crystals can do, sharing some of the stories, some of the stories that we've had with clients, for example, and that's part of what we do after the show is over, is the sharings, and they can get pretty exciting. Or the tonings from Rachel. It's lovely.
And then we always have that little integration period where we're just quietly thinking, and I love that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. Sometimes we get very quiet and it doesn't feel like dead air at all, because we get into those really beautiful moments of just absorbing and bliss. It's so nice. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of listening, and I can even hear a little bit of the galactic tones. I find that really exciting when we as a group can bring them through. And then I've noticed the last couple of times on the radio where we were actually able to bring them through for everyone to hear. And they're so powerful. I just feel like I change each time we go through another wave, another level of those tones. And I could actually hear them just a little bit when Diane had her mic open.
Yeah, I heard them too. I learned something about the bells too, Rachel. When often in the very beginning, your room that you sat in sounded like there were bells ringing.
Yes.
It's almost, yeah, and someone was teaching that at a workshop recently where they actually used bells to shift an energy, to lift an energy. If you take a brass bell into a room where an activity occurred, you can break that energy up. And as soon as you break that energy up, then you can fill it with the energy that you want in there, perhaps with turning on your LED light with particular crystals on it, or just sending that intention, or perhaps smudging or playing a beautiful bit of music as well.
Yeah, that can clear the whole space, the bell. And I've also heard when people do a lot of sound healing that they actually don't want people to clap, because the clapping will break up all the energy that's right there. So that's powerful to know as well. Because clapping does create an energy too.
Yeah.
That sounds like the video that Enelia Benz posted on YouTube about how to clear a space when she has to travel so much, and she goes to motel rooms, and she says, thousands of people go through each room, and it was funny, as the camera followed her to different parts of the room, she would clap her hands, and like the entire sound was absorbed. It was gone the instant she clapped her hands, so she kept doing it, and then the clapping became very crisp and very clear, because she was actually breaking up all that energy from all these people that had stayed there. And she explains that by doing that, now all this energy goes back to the actual owners of the energy, so now they can get their energy back. And the bed where she was going to sleep, she was able to clear fairly quickly with like 3 or 4 claps. But then the other bed, the one that's by the window, she says this is obviously the more popular bed. She actually had to complement the clapping with visualization of seeing, white energy filling the bed and clearing it up. So that was really interesting that you reminded me when you said that about the clapping.
I saw that video and I forgot about that. And I remember when she did that, the sound would change with the clapping, because you could
notice
hear when it was clear.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I did this sound conference in New Mexico, and there was this, like, incredible high vibration in the room. And so they did not want anyone to clap because it would clear it. So it's powerful. The clapping has an energy to clear space, too. Yeah, it's really powerful.
My first experience with that thing regarding the quality of the sound was playing with my singing bowls. Like, I would have a person lie down, and I would put the bowl over one area of their body or a chakra, and you would notice you would be playing the bowl on the person's body, and it would hardly make any sound. And as the chakra cleared, it would get louder and louder and crisper until it would just resonate as it would normally sound. So I found that was my first experience when energy is stuck, is using the singing bowls to clear, the body. So that was really an interesting thing to experience.
Yeah, sound is very powerful. And I might have mentioned this before, but in that conference in New Mexico, they said that they thought some of the new medicine of the future was going to be sound, and it makes sense to me. There's so much to it.
Haven't you noticed in your own self? I mean, I noticed that it's happened to me many years ago when Dr. Costa of the Institute of Thought came from San Diego to do a workshop here in Minneapolis. He spoke about that on the sound healing, but one of the things that he mentioned is that if you find yourself making some kind of crazy sound when you're busy doing something else, don't stop your body. Don't let your reason kick in and stop yourself from doing that, because your body is making that sound because at that moment in time it needs it. And, I put that in the back of my mind as, an interesting bit of trivia, but then as time passed, I find myself when I'm in the workshop working on a project and I'm focusing on that. So intellectually you're focused on something separate from your body. I'll find myself either humming some kind of tune or making some kind of noise with my mouth, and it's like I have no control of it. It's just happening, and then it stops just as quickly as it started. Like the body needed to make that sound for some reason, and he said that was its own natural way of repairing things or correcting things or finding balance. So I'm sure
it also helps to release thought forms.
Oh, that makes sense.
a lot of healers will make different sounds while they're clearing your thought forms. It helps chew them up and spit them out, type of thing.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And you'll notice children do it naturally.
Well, we do also. I know that when I'm in pain and so forth, and I'm moving, and then the pain hits me, I always make a noise, and people think, well, that's just a pain noise, but it's clearing the energy of that pain.
There you have it.
Yes.
I have a thing that is called a gunta, which is the Tibetan bell. You got the Tibetan bowl that you run the stick around the edge of. Well, this is a bell. It has a Vajra handle, and again, you hit it, you rub it with a stick, and it's a very pure tone. But what I find is that when there's a thought form, the stick doesn't quite connect with the bell, and it makes a kind of sound, and then suddenly it'll go on. And that's exactly what Inelia is talking about with the clapping, that it's doing the same thing. Whenever I came across a point when it wasn't sounding right, it's exactly what you're saying with in using it to clear a room. I do exactly what you're talking about, but just taking the bell around, and it's a G, it's a note of G. But I also have a regular guest called Shari Edwards, who has been healing and studying the whole subject for over 30 years now. I met her personally in 1995, and was impressed then, and I have her on the show. She's you can do anything. Everything is sound, and you can just create anything with sound. That's it. She recreated her son's kneecap. I helped somebody reverse arsenic poisoning. Many other things.
Well, you can put out fires with specific frequencies also. I mean, if they did that, they wouldn't have to, firemen wouldn't have to waste all that time and energy hooking up hoses and everything, but I guess somebody's interested in not revealing that technology.
Wow, yeah.
I'm sure many members of the group have heard of Dr. Jonathan Goldman and his work, his sound compositions.
I'll have a lot of his music.
Some years ago, he did a sound station was a workshop that he did here in Minneapolis, and I bought two of a pair of tuning forks that he got. That he said he was inspired to make them, and the key to the two forks is not so much the sound that each of them individually make, but actually the space between the two forks, because when you sound them, the space between the two forks is actually the value of phi 1.618, the golden mean ratio. So it just spirals out infinitely, and it's interesting when you pass them over somebody's head, different people hear different things other than the sound that the forks themselves are making. So that's an interesting tool that he had available for people.
That's a kind of natural fifth, isn't it?
So one is 288 cycles, the other one is 468 cycles. So that he said the difference is as close as possible to the value of phi. So that was a really interesting.
Yeah. 288 and 458, yeah. I have 288.
Oh, one fork says. Let me take them out of the. It says 468. It's he's got a mark A sharp,
yeah,
the number 13, and then the other one has a different mark. It has the letter D like David and the number 8, and underneath it says 288. I guess that's the frequency.
288. All right. Well, there.
So he says it's not. He says it's not the perfect value of phi, but it's 99.99% as he could make it.
Yeah, because it doesn't match exactly the regular geometric notes of it. But I can imagine that would be it doesn't come across very well. What probably you could do is to record them on an MP3, and I can play it into the radio. But Skype can't cope with those frequencies. Basically,
oh, yeah,
if you could make a little recording of them, and I could play them in the studio tape recorder.
I guess Skype is analogous to the phone system, which is meant more for the frequencies of the human voice.
Totally.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. But thank you, Walt. Very interesting.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'm curious as well, like what else would he do? What's the function of these tuning forks? Why would, like you ended up with someone, what do you do with them?
Well, in my case, I did the same experiment with a subject, the same thing that I mentioned before, where the singing bowl, when you put it over an area of the body that's got, I don't know, stuck energy or negative energy, and the bowl refuses to sound very well until that area gets finally cleared. I experienced the same thing with the fork. I'm trying to remember. I went to now I remember. In a previous conversation, I think I mentioned that like David does hypnotherapy. From Dr. Costa's workshop, I learned a transpersonal hypnotherapy technique called the 15 step, which is a simple method to get a person to take their pattern body into the fourth dimension so their guides can do physical healing and they can answer questions. So when you are in the middle of a session and you're talking to the person's guides through the person, and you say, okay, ask if you need physical healing, and the person will invariably reply, yes, the left leg, for example. And you ask the guides, do you need a color or do you need a sound? Will this sound be good for you? So when I did the session that I went to this lady's house, I took my two bowls and I took the tuning forks, and they wanted the forks. But the incredible thing was the forks for all of those who have played with tuning forks, they have a very nice long resonance to them. The forks, I would bang them on the edge of the furniture, and it was like they would go ding. It's like the sound was being sucked up like with a sponge. It must have been going straight into her body, and I would do it again and again and again. By the sixth time, they started resonating close to normal, but again, it was like something was sucking up the sound right out of the fork I had. And the lady is lying down with her eyes closed. It's a very, very light trance state, because the person is aware of everything that's happening around her, and she started laughing. She says, why aren't your forks sounding very much? I said, don't ask me, ask your guys. But I kept going, and they said, keep going, keep going. And then eventually the forks started sounding normally. And just like that happened to me. I heard anecdotes of other people doing 15-step sessions where Dr. Costa himself, he visited a friend in Baltimore, and the wife had cancer. She was bald from the chemotherapy and from the treatment that she was receiving. So the friend asked if he could do a session for the wife, and when she was in her trance, the doctor says, does she need a sound to heal the body? And they said yes. So they started grabbing everything in the house that would make any sound. Pots, pans, forks, metal utensils, ceramics, anything that would make a sound, and they kept asking, is this the sound? And they kept saying, no, no. So he says, the strangest thing was that when all of this was happening, it was snowing outside. And it wasn't a day where you would normally see a city crew doing any kind of street work. So while they're asking in the house, okay, what about this? At one moment, the woman said, the guides were saying, wait, it's coming. wait, it's coming. So the two men are looking at each other, what does this mean? All of a sudden, they heard this tremendous sound outside the window. There was a city crew drilling into the concrete. I don't know if they were looking for a power line or a gas line in the middle of snowing, but very rare thing to see, crews going out doing work in bad weather. But it was, he said it was a teeth-shaking sound, very, very shrill sound that they were making. That's the sound that they needed for her body, for her ailment. So months later, the condition cleared up. So that was an extreme case. Mine was not so not so extreme, but it was an interesting thing to behold, seeing sound being sucked up out of the air, or rather, hearing sound being sucked up out of the air.
Some people see sounds. I have a friend who's like, "What, you mean you don't see sound as colour?" She says to me.
Aphasia. That would be something neat to have, to be able to see sounds.
Well, yes and no. Imagine that you don't see, or that all sounds are not nice.
I agree.
Colours will also. She's an artist. She's like, she does all these things. She's incredibly kind of psychically open on all these different levels, and sees sound and things like that. But she has difficulty in dealing with realities in certain ways. Everybody's got their stuff.
She's perceiving reality on a totally different level from the rest of us.
Exactly, and nobody understands her.
And there are people that train for that. I had I forget where I read that. I don't know if maybe it was the PSYOP people that get trained for government projects. People that are trained to see with their fingertips and retrain their senses to be used differently from what normally would be. But that's a different situation. They're not born to it. They actually train themselves to alter their senses.
I went to...
Oh, come.
I'm sorry. I went to a workshop some time ago, and the folks that were talking at the workshop, they were working with Carillion cameras, and they said that the doctor who had actually developed it since the Carillion couple, he was doing a lot of experiments with developing senses with children who were completely visually blind, and he was able to take them and encourage them to use their third eye, and they were able to actually walk around like you and I. And they actually developed the perception of being able to see through walls, because it's just energy to them. And they could, if they asked them, okay, on the other side of this wall is, a bookshelf, and could you please tell me what the titles of the books are on that? And these children, they were able to perceive precisely what was there. And they tried to actually teach older adults who had visual impairment, who are completely visually impaired, and they had a more difficult time to develop that skill. But the younger kids, they had photographs of these young kids, and they were reading books, and the book was like they were holding on to these books, and that's all they were doing was just holding these books, and they were reading them out loud. It was beautiful, and they put blindfolds on them too, just for the photographic effect. It was really quite lovely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you'll never need glasses in your life.
Never. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's speaking of glasses, that's one of the funny experiences I had playing around with all of this Sperling technology. I used I measured the distance between my mother's pupils, and I used that as a base measure to calculate what the size of a lifelike ring would have to be for her eyes. So I made a couple of rings and mounted them on an empty frame with no lenses. because she kept experiencing this burning sensation and it didn't respond to any physical chemical treatment. And as soon as she puts them on, she loves using them for watching television because she says the television looks closer and brighter. And I said, "You're kidding, right?" And she goes, "No, here, try them." And I realized that in Sperling's books, he had a similar experience with a friend who had a telescope, and he brought these rings and he put them around. He fit them on the telescope, and all of a sudden, the telescope's ability to perceive light was amplified like 100-fold. I guess the same thing happens with the physical human eye. You put these things on, and actually things look brighter. So she keeps them to watch. She uses them to watch television.
Do you mean pinhole glasses?
No. It's just an empty frame, and on the frame I've mounted a couple of life light rings, like the ones Slim Sperling makes, but they're very small because they're made with thin copper wire. What happened is that the size of each ring is calculated based on the person's anatomy, as opposed to just making an arbitrary measure. And so there's no lens at all. When you put them on, you're seeing through the rings, through the space in the rings. And she says the TV looks bigger and it looks brighter. And she stopped it. They stopped the burning sensation she had in her eyes. So my thinking is that maybe they're reinforcing the eye somehow, and that's why they work.
So they're twisted wire.
Correct.
And basically you make these twisted wire like glasses frames. Is that correct?
Can we turn on the video mode in this call, or it's not available?
No, but do you have a picture that's on the web?
No, I have my website, but it's not something that I make to offer because I would need to be in front of the person who might want them, because I need to take measurements of their face to do the calculation for the size of the ring for each eye.
Yes, but surely there's a picture on there of what you're talking about.
I don't have a picture. It's just all I have in my website is a picture of these transmutation bracelets, which are made with a twisted copper. Life light rings is if you do a web search on life light rings, it'll take you to multiple sites that are selling the Sperling devices. The life light rings, what ended up happening, he did an experiment. Since all metal wire has orgone polarity, if you take a piece of wire, orgone will be entering on one end and coming out the other end. So if you twist it around to make a ring and you solder it with silver solder, that copper-silver junction creates a difference of potential, and immediately the argon begins flowing in the ring. The problem is that if you consider the plane, the ring is now encasing a two-dimensional plane, correct? One face of the plane has a negative polarity, the other face of the plane has a positive polarity. In fact, Slim did an experiment on himself. He lay down and he put the ring on him. At this time, he wasn't aware of this polarity issue, and he had to get up, and I don't know whether he fell out of the bed or had to jump out of the bed, because he almost had a heart attack. He had the negative polarity part of the ring, on his chest. So that thing was pulling the energy out of his chest. So he thought, okay, how do I go about avoiding this? So the way to avoid that is you make the ring with two pieces of wire, but they are arranged in opposite directions. So the argon flow one is going one way, the other one going the other way, and they're twisted clockwise. So when you have the two rings made that way, the argon flow is such that both sides of this two-dimensional plane are actually positive. And also the space in the ring actually has like a film of etheric light. My mom is more psychic than me. She can actually see the film of light encased in the ring. and it also projects like a shaft of light perpendicular to the plane of the ring.
The ends of the joined ends, are they flush butted onto each other, or does it
matter? What they do is they twist the wire and then they just snip it, and then they just solder the two ends together. But my experience with my experiments proved that it's not strong enough for my liking. So what I ended up doing is I made my own ring, but I have the positive negative ends are soldered together with I call them penny pads. It's something that my guides show me. What it is I'll take a stack of pennies, douse their faces, positive face, negative face, and then solder them with silver in series. So it becomes like an argon battery. They're in the junction. When you have the two ends of the wire, positive, negative, instead of just soldering the two ends together, I put these pads, and the ring is like 500 times stronger than the standard ring.
I see. So it's a sort of accelerator. Interesting. Now, well, that's awesome. We do sound like we are joined by Frank. I recognize that. Anyone?
And now for something different.
Thanks very much, Walt. That's really interesting stuff.
Thank you.
Frank? Where are you? Oh, yeah, he was there. I just heard him.
He's playing hide and go look.
Yeah.
He's not there.
No, he's not here.
I don't see his picture on the screen.
Oh, right. Maybe
he's
some...
He's on Skype, but he's not on this call. I don't know if he knows how to get in.
Could somebody give him a bell on his landline and ask him if he's sober enough to? He's probably plied with food and drink to his worst detriment. You know, he's probably just staggering around the place. You know, wondering what week it is.
You guys.
Bless his
Joan, are you going to call or want me to?
He's just listening to the call to see how we handle ourselves.
He's doing that again.
Anyway, just to kind of finish up with this, Walt, what is the this whole thing about the lost qubit? Who lost it? Why did they lose it? And who found it again?
In his website, he does quote the name of the gentleman that did the work. Unfortunately, they don't give any specific details as to how he went about finding this. The issue of it being lost should come at no surprise to you, since so much information throughout, the centuries has been altered or hidden for obvious reasons. But my experience with it is a practical nature, because one of the things that he mentioned in the write-up of the lost qubit is that it affects thought energy. So I put it to the test by making an implosion coil mounted on the bracelet, and then have somebody put it on, and then I would give the person instructions. Okay, do me a favor now and think of a really negative memory, or try to come up with a really negative thought. And they would squint and they would make faces, and different people will report different things. Somebody says, "Oh, I just got the thought and it just zoomed away," and another person would say, "Oh, I have this really bad memory from my childhood, or for some reason I can't recall it." So different people with different words would end up saying almost the same thing. They could not hold on to.
Very interesting.
So that was my proof that it was actually the lost qubit was actually working on thought energy.
Well, it's very interesting, because that's the same experience that I've had in a pyramid. Some of the pyramids that I've built in the past is I've tried desperately to have a negative thought about somebody or something, and it just won't come. It's really, really interesting, and that's why it's really good to have a pyramid around, just in case you get into these places. Anyway, we are joined right now, exactly on the hour, by our dear vocalizer, Frank Jordan. Hi, Frank.
Well, hello there. Guess what?
You're drunk and stuffed with food.
I got hung up in family dinners this afternoon, and as usual, when I show up, everybody lines up for healings, and I didn't get out of there, and I just barely made it home. So I'm sorry, but it sounds like you guys are doing great. Didn't miss me a bit, did you?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, but we missed Stephen.
Have you had your break yet?
No, we're just about to have one. So let's catch up in that in a minute. Where shall we go? We need a little track, and oh, there we go. Van Morrison, Contacting My Angel. That'll do.
Hi, Frank.
Hello. All right. Thank you for inviting me back into the group. Sorry, but I was off on this dinner, and it was amazing. I just got into that space, the healing space, and people just kept coming. And when I get into that space, an amazing thing happened. It doesn't matter where I am, but it seems like we extend our how can I tell it, more than, or our field out to whoever's happens to be in the room or the group. And within a few minutes, if I'm there, it just starts drawing people, and they open up, their energy flows start coming forth. And whoever it is that needs the attention at the moment, the full force of the entire group turns towards them empathetically and sympathetically, and their healing, their own healing system kicks in, and amazing things happen. It just blows your mind to be participating in it and observing this. But this is one of the joys of being a healer, is to be able to stimulate others to spontaneously join into those frequencies. And once they do, well, I've always said that every so-called miraculous healing is a natural thing. It isn't anything miraculous about it. It's natural, and we all should be able to do it. And as we're easing into the fourth dimension, this is going to become more and more prevalent. And so I've already had a fill of joy today, and look forward to more further on in the show when we do healing work with others. But let's look at Stephen's beginning to come in now. Let's look at the essence of what happens when we get into these resonant fields with each other. And that's, we were referring back to the pyramid energy last week, and the potential of opening up and understanding more about that. And that's exactly what the pyramids are about, is a resonance of sending through the crystalline grid of consciousness. And the crystals are depending on what the shape of the crystal is, like the tetrahedron or the octahedron. Those of you who understand geometric forms better than I do know that they actually hold the energetics of dimensional realities within them. And these dimensional realities, when they start with just a point, which is what the initial impetus to the Big Bang was, it's some great force or consciousness that says, in this particular aspect of the cosmos or area of the cosmos, we need a little universe. And so a point was established, and that point began to draw energy, and to the point to where its consciousness could grow and set a focus, a course of evolutionary consciousness for itself. It's like a child being born in that initial energetic point of or a state of being, and that state of being was simply all-encompassing, all oneness. And the oneness didn't even have a separation or a two-ness about it. It wasn't I am, it was just an aspect of I. And that was a singularity, a single point. When that singularity began to expand and began to multiply through the Big Bang, it began creating more singularities, more points of reference, and when those energetically begin to polarize and come into states of being, when there was 2 points, then that was the first dimension, and that was simply a straight line of energy, or it could have been a vast field, who knows what it was, but A and B connotated that there was a potential for a C, a third or second point. And when this happened, and the third point was created, then we had the triangular form, of course, and then when we added dimension to that, the dimension, the length to the width, and it became the heights. That's the third dimensional reality. Now, within that, it's the formulation of and those of you who know geometry and the crystal structures and all that, understand how all you have to do is add one more point anywhere in a spontaneous fashion, and things spontaneously come into form, and that formation is coming out of this incredible potential, this force of energy that we're calling the matrix now, the subtle energy field. When a point is initiated, other points attached to it and form is created and brought into, is established. And form tends to, once a form is established, energetically it becomes the attracting point for more potentials of dimensional creations, realities, and it just grows and grows and grows. And within that, of course, is the structure of consciousness, the consciousness of I, that incredible state of being that visualized or began to create the form. And when it polarized, it became the I am. And that's what the first dimension was, with 2 points, I am. And so everything rose from the I am, and they become, it is like the Father and the Mother, and the consciousness being the Holy Ghost. All other forms arose from those, very much, and identically like all life is spontaneously regenerated. The I am principle of polarities being balanced and creating form, utilizing energetic forms that are already available to us through the elements that was created and continue to be created in the expansions of Big Bang and the expansion of consciousness within those forms. Consciousness itself is a crystalline matrix. Because everything that appears in physical form is designated in consciousness first. If it can become a thought, if it can become a creative form in thought, then structurally its potential in the physical realm and all other realms. And then when we begin talking about dimensional aspects of this, where frequency is split off, not only in the ongoing frequencies of light, the many stages and vibrational frequency potentials of light itself, but other dimensional polarities that can exist within and parallel and around the dimensions that are created from the light source, that original I am light, enlightenment state. Unbeknownst to most, there are many other galaxies, universes coexistent within and around and amongst the one we perceive, but it is because of the state of complexity of that's required to hold anyone in form. We don't see the others, and we probably never will until we evolve for another several billion or trillion years. But that's the evolution of our state of consciousness now, is being a part and particulate of that great, incredible being that is the all-encompassing I, the I that was which is simply a point of being that had self-awareness. And with self-awareness, once we have self-awareness, we have potential. When self exists alone, which is what the unorganized matter of the matrix is, just a straight line energy, that is just self. But when it becomes coordinated and organized into myself, or I am, then the functionality of all of the things can accrue and grow beyond that to our present realities. And I know our dissertation was intended and directed towards pyramids. And pyramid structures are energetic cosmoses within themselves because of the potentials of frequencies and energetic interaction between pyramidal structures. The trapezoidal, the quadrihedron, the trapezoidal, all those features of geometry that energy can be directed to and distorted to between two different points are the creative forms of the manifestation of all things in reality. Now, are there any questions from anyone about this particularly, and what is your place in it? Well, your place in it is to be a point of I am, and to have that self-realization, that point of consciousness says, I am, I exist, I think, I have consciousness, and therefore I am a creative force that can use the power and potential of connecting one point to another in endless logarithmic scales until all form and matter is created. And the incomprehensible thing to us is that this entire creation of everything, if we just use our own little universe here as a factor of matter, that is all just a small point of all that is, and of all the universes and all the interspersed universes within our own field here. And it's so incomprehensible and mind-blowing to consider this and all of the potentials of life and interaction and involvement that we can participate in our fields of growth and evolution of consciousness, because that's what it's all about, is through the starting out with the matrix of one point, expanding it out through all the different forms, potentials, and realities. This is the experiential growth and evolution of the God Force consciousness itself. Our universe, our particular localized universe here, is an evolving life force being. Being simply means that being. Having life, having extensuality, having form, having functionality. And so in the exploration of all things possible, as these fields of consciousness merge and interact and continue to evolve, that brings us down to our point of self-awareness, I am, and what are the potentials within you that really we waste. We waste them every day by not understanding who we are and what we are and what the potentials we are. And the waste comes in the self-realization of all the experiences that we can have, that we can produce, that we can manifest, that we can share, that we can create for joyous interaction and loving being. Because that's the core of everything, is this essential being of love. And what is love? We discussed this many times in the show. Love is that essence and quality of being that sees no separation, no differentiation between one and another. Even though you may be individualized and separate, you're still all part of this one amazing multiplication of form and division of forms into all human and all living realities, no matter what they are. And so love continues to spread and express, even though we may experience negativity within that. The whole point and purpose of negativity is to give us an opportunity to experience all things possible, including those potentials made of wrong choice. Right choice means those that can multiply and build upon the portents of love, the love frequencies, the potential of life in all form, and the wrong choice being that of things that would limit or decrease or suppress the multiplication of all experiences possible in our living forms. And so as we look at it from our individual choices, you can look back at your own lives and with the realization that every moment has been a moment of choice. And where you are and where you exist in your I am in this now moment of self-realization is a product of every choice you ever made in your life. But it didn't begin there. Those choices go all the way back into the DNA and through your family flows, to your historical flows and everything else. And back to the point to where as the choices were made and pulled together in a creative force, in manifestation of form and the nurturing and tutoring of a reality, everything you see around and about you is a construct of thought. It is all thought. It all is all just energetic beings. And I know you discussed this in your prior show and the things that can affect thought and what you can do through your own creative desire and will and choices and intents, what you can do to better your life, your reality, and those of everyone around you. Your perception of being on a very limited scale of what you can do with your realities is because you've been focused into the physical manipulation of physical things without the true realization that your thought is what created these physical things. And as thought can create physical things, it can create invisible things. And that's the subtle energy field of creating something first in the subtle energy field in thought, and then allowing that to manifest into the physical form. And in the past, you've had to do it by manipulation of physical units of organizations, such as elementals or minerals or structures and whatever's available to you to use your ingenuity to create with. But you're coming to the point now where you're going to be able to, and already can, manifest things simply with the power of thought and intent and self-realization. It requires to be really adept and capable in doing that. It requires letting go of the old dependency on manipulation through mechanical means of physical form. And so with that thought in mind, can you manifest things out of thin air?
Absolutely, Frank. This is David. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, in terms of using the octahedron, I went to visit my mother, who is oftentimes very, very sore with arthritis and all kinds of remedies and issues. And so when I got there, she was experiencing all of that, and while I was watching a movie with her, I simply put her home in an octahedron. And within about 15 minutes, I just looked over at her and asked her, "Do you feel anything? How do you feel?" She says, "I don't feel a thing. I feel fine. I have no soreness. I'm not stiff." In just a few moments. And yes, so to answer your question, creating that octahedron, energizing it, and putting her in it, in that house, and I felt the energy shift, and I felt her shift, and I knew before I asked her, was she going to feel better? She was certainly going to feel better, and she did.
Very good, David. And that's expressed a demonstration of exactly when we look at pyramids and the potential of what can occur within and about through the creation of pyramids or the manipulations of geometric matter through form with intent. And so in your pyramid or your octahedron, right, what did you put in there with your thought intent? What did you encapsulate within it?
The intent was to heal her home, the land the home is on, and everything around it within the octahedron. And then I energized it simply by asking, did I have the opportunity to draw energy from the golden grid? And I just connected it and energized it, and poof, she felt wonderful.
Well, I guess you just depleted the golden grid.
No, just a little bit.
I'm just kidding. You can't possibly deplete it because it has the source and sustenance of the energy we've drawn from the Ring of Fire for 2 years here and stored there. It's becoming a living, vivid force of consciousness now. And that is encapsulating there. In fact, I saw a scientific reference in one of the scientific journals the other day about that they are detecting a force around the Earth that they've not been aware of before, that has capabilities that they don't even understand. Well, yes. Thank you, Earthmind Think Tank Group. You've been recognized and honored.
And I've also used the octahedron simply on a specific organ issue. If there's someone's having some kind of an issue with a specific organ in a healing or even in a hypnotherapy session, simply visualizing that octahedron around it, energizing it, and watching that energy just disappear and things get better.
This is what I was referring to when I was speaking of the group conscious energy that grows within a room full of people when they're all focused on their intent into one thing. It's amazing to watch the energy field grow within a field of people like that. And it is a structure, an energetic structure of consciousness. And those who have the capacity or the will to create crystal pyramids in their homes or in their healing places, what it does is set up an energetic field that absolutely maintains when you leave and take your thought away from it or no longer are energizing it directly, it'll maintain those fields. And so it becomes, in the subtle energy grid of consciousness, it becomes a form that has power. This is what Walt's doing with his tools. When he creates one of his tools and puts it in an energetic form, a physical form, that rises out of his consciousness, and he brings it into the physical grid, and then he incorporates in the thought form of intent of what he wants to do to have that creation express and do. And so I think there's a whole new field opening up here of potential within the group of experimenting and working with these energetic locus fields. What do you call these fields that you work with, Walt?
I'm sorry? Say that again?
What do you call these localized fields that you create around your instruments?
Well, the thing is that mostly I rely on, since people give their permission to contact their guides, my experience shows me that it's people's guides that come in and actually program the devices for what the specific person needs, which is, this has been my experience so far. I described you, the journey that I did for you, what I saw, and it extends outside of the shamanic journey, and I see it working in my workshop. I'm aware of how long it takes to make anything, and yet I'll start making something and give you case in point. Friday afternoon I started working on the device for Mike Anderegg, and this afternoon it's done. I have not seen that before. I always ask for people for 2 to 3 weeks lead time because I'm aware of all the complications and things that can happen. But it is my perception that people's guides take an active role in the making of the devices, and it just gets done faster, more efficiently, without any complications or any snafus.
And may I interject a thought here at that point? That when these people receive these forms you've created, these devices, it's putting them in a subjective form of dependency on the guides and higher other states of consciousness to do the intent work for them or to carry out the intent. And I'd like to inspire people to become the co-creators of this force by realizing they have the capability within themselves, with or without the device, to generate these forms. And if the device gives them an inner clue, an inner manifestation of consciousness, visualization of how to create their own subtle energy forms, then more power to them.
I totally agree, because that was 2 journeys ago. That's exactly my experience, because this lady, Alicia from Britain, wrote asking what would help her, so she gave her permission. I did the journey. This is one of those people whose guides are not in the upper world, but are actually in orbit around the planet. So I asked there were a total of 5 individuals, but 4 of them kept deferring to this 5th one. Every time I would ask a question, they would look at her before answering my question. And so I asked her, okay, what does Alicia need? And her response was very clear and very apropos to what you just said. She says what Alicia needs is Alicia. She has to become intimate with her own I am presence. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, so then she doesn't need anything that I make. And she said no. And then one of my devices materialized on the table, and they gave me instructions how to modify it for what. So I think the device is just going to be like an assistive tool until she discovers inside her what's there, what's already there.
Very good, because I don't want to see people become dependent on that, like a crucifix or something else to do it for them.
No, that's not the point.
Yeah. In fact, that just points out very, very clearly what happened today in this group over here that I worked with, is that they have become dependent on me to do it for them. Oh. But I realize now, well, I do this, so I teach them how to do it for themselves. Once they feel the energy, I instruct them on how to complete not only their own work that's initiated, but how to do it for others. And to the degree of how well they do that, if psychologically they have dependency on some tool, such as those you're creating, there's nothing wrong with that initially. As long as they have the realization they're going to evolve beyond that as their own self-confidence.
Right. It's like training wheels. You use it, and then you'll outgrow it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, let's have some fun then. Let's apply some of this awareness we have. Is there anyone requesting healing tonight? JP?
Mm-hmm. I am.
Frank, I have a request.
All right.
There's a friend of mine, her husband, she's in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and she tells me that her husband has a recurrence of, actually this time he's got 2 fibroid tumors on his head, and he's got a lot of assistance working on the physical aspects of it, and he's even admitted at this point that it's been a great blessing for him because he's suddenly, it's kind of awakened him because he's realizing that he caused it to come back. And what I'd like to do is ask the group to help to clear the emotional causes, the emotional trauma that he hasn't released yet, because all of this happened originally when he was going through a great deal of stress and trauma. So I think that's the part that needs to be
that
worked.
points out where I always begin in my healing is declare the mental emotional cause of whatever the manifestation of the form is of the illness, no matter what it is. And so, is he listening to us tonight by chance?
No, he's not. But he is. His awareness is here.
All right. Can you send him a copy of the tape, the recording, so that he'll understand what happened to him and how he will be able to continue this work himself?
Beautiful.
Okay, we've already set that up with awareness now. So let's. What is his name and his location?
His name is Kevin, and he's in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Kevin in
Kalamazoo, Michigan. Now, everyone, just take your awareness out of the conscious level where we receive that information, and pull that information back into your head through the soul center, back into the psychic center, and then holding the psychic center, we tune into Kevin, and we're actually going through Diane and her friend to attune to this, and through Earth Mind, Kevin in Kalamazoo. Now you'll feel at the back of your neck a kind of a pressure. Extend that pressure on down into the earth. Pick up Earth Mind and go to Kevin in Kalamazoo through the Earth Mind grid. And there we find Kevin's akashic records of what he's experienced in the past that has caused him to manifest this form, these fibroid tumors. Are they on his head or in his head?
She said on his head.
Okay. That's an interesting expression. All right.
Yeah.
All right, we're focusing on that. Drop back in his flow. Now, Kevin, we're speaking to you directly because we know you'll hear this, we hope. Kevin, move with us now back into time, into the akashic records, which are held in the crust of the earth in the silicon dioxide of Earth. This Earth's a gigantic computer. Go back in time and release, let go of those things that seem to be attached to you that you can't get out of your mind, that seem to keep recycling. This could be, there they are, shocks and traumas. The thing I'm picking up with some person that so injured you psychologically that it's like that person stuck to your head and you can't get him out of your head. And these thyroid tumors are simply an expression of that. That's there for you to draw your attention so you can release that. Go back in time and correct the information that occurred, whatever the source was, or whatever time, space. Correct those conditions that that created this situation on your head. So go back in time now and just either clear the energy by releasing it. Do that first of all. Clear the energy and release it from all numerous occasions. And then back in time, during those periods of whatever the stress was that you experienced, create a positive opposite of whatever the negative was. The subconscious mind is incredibly literal. It believes everything you say. So when you create a positive experience back there in time instead of a negative experience, and bring that forward in time through the standing waves of time up to this present moment, bring yourself up to this present moment clear of those stresses and with an enjoyable or a happy occasion rather than a negative one, and take it on into the future. The 0 point picks that thought form up, and here again we're talking about thought forms and the power of thought, and manifest in the 0 point the positive reality instead of the negative. And you project that on into the future. Your head is clear. There's are no tumors there. There's nothing in your past to recreate any tumors. And you are clear and you are healed. Now, yes, we can do this for you, but it's always better to teach a person to heal himself than to do it for him, because that lesson continues to grow and extend outward, resonate outward through your awareness and your awareness of how you can teach others how to do this. And I invite you to sit in, Kevin, on the Wolf Spirit Radio programs to learn how literally simple it is to manifest and manage your reality instead of being subjective to it. That's my mantra. Manage your reality instead of being subjective to it. And to imprint this, we bring in the force of higher consciousness to implement it. And as soon as I say that, my hands heat up. That's a sign of the galactic flow, and yours should be too, Kevin. Feel your hands heat up with the frequencies of energy to conduct and complete your healing, to bring your teachings back into the right and proper order. And in the future, anytime you want to do this for others or further to yourself, you simply remember this time, this lesson, this moment, because every healing is really a spiritual event. And so working with the spirit, through in spirit, we can de-manifest and re-manifest anything in our conscious, mental, emotional reality or the physical form. And we do it through the subtle energy system, through the manipulation of thought form, and we become co-creators of the reality of consciousness that holds us in form, which is actually your bit of the I am consciousness. And when you become aware that I am consciousness is not separate from you and above you in the power of God or elsewhere, but within you, then you have that power. You come into what's called self-realization. Self-realization. And with that, you have the power. And so it is. Oh, that felt good. Now, on the subtle energy side, what is happening there, we were creating a form around him, and he was doing it for himself, of a pyramidal structure of consciousness. So the next one we will do it with the pyramidal form, not being created subtly, but objectively with our conscious intent, and we'll see how that works. So who's next?
Okay. Well, our very own Dave has come up with the very mystery pains in. He says it's like at the top of his hips, or something like that. So it's like sacral area, I'd say.
At the top of his hip, on the side or on the back?
I think probably towards the back, but towards, it's like on the side of the back. So it's like further away from the spine, I think is what he's saying.
Is it where that sacral notch in the sacrum latches into the hip bone?
Says that his cleaner lady, who's also an osteopath, said it might be a sciatic thing.
All right, that's what I wanted to know. What happens is the sacrum has a couple of little knobs on each side of it, and those fit in a kind of a little indentation in the pelvic girdle, and right parallel with them runs the nerves that flow out of the spine and down through to the legs and the buttocks and that area. And now if those slip out of joint, it stretches those nerves, and that's what sciatica is, and causes a lot of pain. And then the muscles surrounding those go into spasm to try to protect it. And so these things are really tricky to work with, but I'm going to tune in to Dave and do a deeper reading and make sure that's what this is before we attempt to work with it. So just give me a moment here. Yeah, okay. That's what it is. Now, There are several ways of manipulating that back into place again. One way is to, on the side that the spasm's going down, the sciatica, lay flat on your back on the floor, a very hard surface, and with your body totally relaxed, press down with your heel on the floor and in such a way that you lift that pelvic girdle totally relaxed, and just a slight lift and turn on manipulation. Many times those things will pop right back into place again. Or you can get someone else to do it for you, but it's difficult for even a chiropractor to do. You can do it better, you're doing it yourself. Sometimes you can stand up and stand straight up, put your weight on the side, and just gently rotate your pelvic girdle, your spine, and try to rotate that thing back into place again. Just pop it in by rotating very gently and pressing it back into place. But I want to try something else here now. I know Dave is listening. So Dave, we're going to create an octahedron of energy right over that condition. This is going to be a subtle energy thought form creation right in your lower pelvic region. Actually, I want the center to go across the top of the pelvis, and a pyramid going up your spine to a point between your shoulder blades, and one going below your spine, going down to about a foot below your pelvic girdle, right between your legs. That's going to be the top of the pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid. And we're visualizing that pyramid structure in Dave's own system now. I know there's a lot of work done by chiropractors and people who work with this type of energy in diagramming these things out for balance and whatnot. But we're creating within you your own pyramidal structure now, and within that pyramid, and we feel our hands heating up as energy is accumulating, waiting for our intent. Through the power of the Christ within us, in this octahedron based around David Crusoe's pelvis, we are visualizing the pure and perfect form of his, if it is the sciatic notch that's out of place there, we see that relaxing, going back in place as he manipulates it and works with it. We see the spasm relaxing. We're actually working now in the creative energy that holds the form of his physical reality, the 0 point in his body. And in that 0 point, we see the standing waves coming from the past, from his back to the 0 point, out his front, to the future, and we're seeing within that, right in this moment of now, we're creating the quadrahedral structure. Actually, I'm seeing a cube that has 6 pyramids with their point, the apex of their point, right square in the middle of his lower spine down there, that will work more effectively for him because it's balancing the polarity between the left side and the right within this cube of energy. So we're creating 6 pyramids in a cube around his lower spine, and with putting our intent right in that 0 point. It's the apex of these 6 pyramids right in the middle of the cube. Through the power of the Christ within us, we see Dave in the perfect and normal condition. Now, sustain. We will our thought form projection to maintain its form. And when he goes to bed at night, we're visualizing this form in the bed, surrounding his pelvis, so no matter how he moves, his lower back's protected, and it's in the healing process. We project this into the future so the healing is continuous. Now, this is a little different approach than what we usually do, where we just make it happen. We're creating a form that you, Dave, can work with to do your own creative healing with the self-realization of how it works. That from that apex of those 6 pyramids in the square is the 0 point of that locality. And the energy resonates, and I can see it very strongly, clairvoyantly happening. Perfect. All right, now if Walt, if you had a tool, what tool of yours that you commonly make would you use to do this type of work?
You mean the work that's being done on his body?
Yeah. What could you create, or what do you have that would hold the intent to manifest the healing? But see, I'm trying to put the power in his hands instead of in ours.
Oh. Well, any of the tetrahedrons you can program with your intention, and because the copper structure is always on and running like a little motor, as long as you put the intention inside the device, it'll sustain. It will not dissipate. That was my whole pursuit in developing the devices, that you don't need to refresh a program. All you need to do is either stop it or change it.
Okay, let's do it etherically. Visualize one of your little copper motors right inside the center of that tube. Let's see if we can make this work.
The easiest one is the implosion coil. It's always on, and it generates a toroidal field, and that's our main energy field is a toroid.
That's the one that turns in both directions, isn't it?
It's like a giant donut.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Everybody visualize. Okay, perfect. It's happening already. All right. Very good. Beautiful. All right, Dave, we're going to will this to sustain, and you talk to the elementals that are holding this form of reality, and you will it to sustain also. You recreate it, visualize it energetically, bring it into, keep it in form. And then let us know in our next show how it worked.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, next up, is where are we? Did we do no, here we go. Marcia, did we do the supporting and caring for her ill husband?
Oh, that's
Rachel's.
Our friend. Yeah, her friend in Long Beach.
Yeah.
Okay, what is his name again?
Marcia Utane.
Actually, I wanted from Marcia just some love and support for her ill husband, because she's caring for him so much.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my brain, I forgot his name.
That's Arthur.
Arthur. Well,
but I was wanting this to go to Marcia.
Oh, all right. For Marcia herself, then.
Yes, just to give her some love and support for all she's going through.
Perfect. Okay, what we want to do now, let's put Martha in a box, a rectangular box that has the toroids in it, manifesting into energetic form, what she requires to sustain herself through this travail with Arthur. And we're visualizing the box down, the toroidal forms, one on top and one below for her high self and her low self. And we see manifesting strength, vitality, compassion to nurture Arthur through his translation, if that's what's happening. And I see something else happening too. I see a stream of light coming in the top of her rectangular form, her energetic form, her creating, that is full of crystal pyramids. Right on down through, out the bottom of the box into Earth Mind, so we got the polarity between the two, so that a toroid right in the 0 point in her heart is manifesting on holding this form of this, the reality of this rectangular system that we're creating to assist Marcia through the power of the Christ within us. We see Marcia filled with love and compassion and understanding of the process she's experiencing now, and giving a nurturing Arthur with everything he needs to help him in his process. Now we feel our hands getting very hot. This is a different type of healing than we usually do, because we're creating a structural form. It's a etheric form to maintain what we create, rather than just broadcast it once and forget about it. How is Arthur doing?
He seems better. They found a new doctor, and it's given them some hope, but he is still very weak.
Well, we wish them the best and the most love possible to sustain them through their situation.
Thank you.
All right. And we see your connection with Arthur, and you're no longer being weakened by his need, are you? Are you, as we instructed you in your session the other day, are you directing energy exterior to yourself so it isn't being drawn from you?
Yeah, I got really strong that day that I worked with you, and the next day I dropped again. But I felt like I was getting downloaded with some energies because I was seeing a lot of things etherically. So I think it might be something different.
All right. You see, we have the capacity to manifest these toroidal fields outside of ourselves. We don't have to use the one that's within us, and then weaken our own support system. We can manifest these things, and that's the awareness that's coming through to us now. And the fourth dimensional consciousness is that what we create in our minds, particularly with the infusion of the galactic energy that I feel coming through now, that becomes a reality in the subtle dimensional realms. And even though we can't see it, it can be felt. And that's all right. Let's go to Arthur, and around his bed in his hospital room, let's put a crystal structure at the ceiling of his room, and 4 crystalline structures in each corner. Visualize quartz crystals if you want to, manifest that form. Then at the bottom of the lower apex, another one, so it becomes the as above, so below octahedron. And let's fill that with energy for Arthur, so that he in his process can utilize this energy according to how his indwelling soul wants to use it, either for healing or for his translation. Okay, this is like doing the Book of the Dead, actually, except it can also be the Book of Life. However you choose to use the energy, but it is his sole choice. How interesting this is. this is you see now an interesting aspect here is it isn't just me doing this, it's energetically our entire group is projecting that form, and it's so much more powerful than if I were just doing it alone. I think it said in the Bible someplace something about where three shall gather, the power of God shall manifest, or something like that.
We got to go, Frank. Out of time.
Oh, where did the hour go? I just got getting started good here.
Thanks very much, Frank. Everybody, good night.
We'll see you next Saturday.
Have a good night, JP.
Good night, JP.
Everyone.
Next Saturday or next Sunday?
Next Sunday. Unless time compresses.
Uh-huh.